You already know what we're looking at today, but this one will be a bit different considering there are a lot of major differences between the book and the 1939 movie. And while, yes, typically I look at stuff you may have to read in school, I thought I'd have a little fun and read this book for a change. But first, why don't we travel to the land of Oz real quick?
That's better. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was written by L. Frank Baum and published on May 17th, 1900. You heard me correctly. This book is 123 years old. If a story can last that long, it's definitely made an impact. Now, was it popular for the time? Yes, it was! There were 3 silent film adaptations, and there's a 1902 musical adaptation of the book simply called The Wizard of Oz, which is also the title of many later publications of the book. In fact, the copy I bought at Barnes & Noble was titled The Wizard of Oz. This is my copy of the book. The copyright page says this is the 2013 edition. It's still very much the same story, and it has some of the illustrations from W. W. Denslow, which I will be using in place of my usual actors. Now, I know most of you are familiar with the 1939 movie. Like I said in the beginning, there are many differences between the book and the movie. The biggest one is that the ruby slippers aren't ruby slippers, they're silver shoes. There's actually a reason for that. For those who have seen the movie, remember how the Land of Oz is very bright and colorful? Well, silver shoes wouldn't really pop out in this colorful world, so the decision was made to change them to ruby slippers. Now, I will tell you the story as the book tells it. We'll go over the many comparisons to the movie as part of the analysis. The analysis itself won't be very big since this book is written like a fairy tale, which makes perfect sense since L. Frank Baum was inspired by the fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen. He was also heavily inspired by Lewis Carroll's 1865 novel, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Okay, now let's get to the summary. The story begins on a farm in the Kansas prairie. Dorothy Gale and her dog Toto live on that farm with Dorothy's Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. One day, a cyclone passes through the prairie. Now, I'm gonna pause here for a second. I can see a lot of you thinking, wait, didn't Dorothy run away? What about Miss Gulch? Well, my dear viewer, that was from the movie. This is the book. What happens in the book is Dorothy happens to be at home when the cyclone passes through. The location of the cellar is actually in the house itself. It's described as a small hole dug in the ground. It's not a proper cellar, but it's meant to provide some protection against a cyclone. Anyways, Aunt Em tells Dorothy to get to the cellar, but Toto tries to hide under the bed. Aunt Em already goes down the ladder into the cellar, but Dorothy has to go grab Toto. When she does, she can't quite make it to the cellar because the wind is shaking the house so much she loses her footing. The house then detaches and flies up into the sky. Dorothy eventually calms down as the wind is carrying the house away and falls asleep on her bed. No bonks to the head, no nothing. Just the feeling of, well, my dog is fine, I'm fine, the house should land soon, might as well sleep since my future is unclear. When Dorothy wakes up, the house is no longer moving and it's no longer dark. They're not in Kansas anymore. Dorothy is greeted by a few munchkins and an old lady known as the Good Witch of the North. She praises Dorothy for killing the Wicked Witch of the East. Now Dorothy is very confused until the Good Witch points out where Dorothy's house landed. Right on top of the Wicked Witch of the East. Well, the Munchkins are freed from the evil witch's tyranny now, but Dorothy still wants to get back home to Kansas. The Good Witch consults her magic chalkboard, and it tells Dorothy that the only way she can get home is to follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City and ask the great and powerful Wizard of Oz to help her. Now, because Dorothy killed the Wicked Witch of the East, Dorothy is given the silver shoes that the evil witch wore. Now, the Good Witch leaves Dorothy with a kiss on her forehead, which leaves a mark that'll protect her from evil and harm. Now let me tell you something interesting. Yes, the silver shoes do have a magical charm on them, but Dorothy doesn't know how to use it. In fact, she didn't even want to wear them. She only puts them on because her old shoes were worn. And now it is time for Dorothy and her trusty dog, Toto, to start their quest down the yellow brick road. Now Dorothy stays the night at a home owned by a munchkin named Buck, and then the next day she finds the Scarecrow. She helps him off a pole, and he wants to go with her to the wizard so he can get some brains, for he cannot think very well. Now, Dorothy and Scarecrow eventually make it to a cottage in the forest, and nearby is the Tin Woodman, who has been standing rusted for who knows how long. Dorothy uses the oil can to free the Tin Woodman so he may move once again. The Tin Woodman wants to come with them to see the wizard because after his many misfortunes of a cursed axe chopping off his own limbs and having to have all his limbs replaced with tin, he no longer has a heart. He hopes the wizard will give him one. The group then makes their way deeper into the woods, where they come across a lion! But he is a coward. He comes with the group in hopes that the wizard can give him some courage, since he's under a lot of pressure, having to be the king of the beasts and all. Now the group goes on a few adventures down the yellow brick road as they make their way there. I will sum up briefly. There's a huge ledge that they must cross, and eventually they run into the scary Kalidas, creatures with bodies like bears and heads like tigers. Thanks to the Tin Woodman's quick work, he's able to make a bridge and later destroy it once everyone's across. Then they must cross a river, but it seems the Scarecrow got himself stuck trying to get the raft to shore. Thankfully, a nearby stork is able to get him to shore. Now we get to the poppy field. Lion, Dorothy, and Toto are super sleepy due to the influence of the poppies, but since Scarecrow and Tin Woodman technically aren't living, they are not affected. Scarecrow and Tin Woodman manage to get Dorothy and Toto out while they're still sleeping, but Lion is unable to escape and he falls asleep near the edge of the poppy field. Tin Woodman notices a mouse being chased by a wildcat. Taking pity on the creature, the Tin Woodman kills the wildcat with his axe. This mouse is actually the queen of the field mice. She's super grateful to Tin Woodman for saving her, and she says she will do anything for him. So, he and Scarecrow ask her to call together a lot of field mice. The plan is that Tin Woodman will make a little truck, in the sense that it's a load-bearing cart on wheels. This is 1900 after all. Scarecrow and Tin Woodman will get Lion on the cart, and then all the mice will pull it while Scarecrow and Tin Woodman push. The plan is successful! Dorothy, Toto, and Lion wake up. The queen of the field mice tells them that if they need help again, just give them a call. The group finally makes it to the Emerald City, where the guardian of the gates tells them to wear green-tinted spectacles, or glasses, so that they won't be blinded by the brilliance of the city. Even Toto has his own little green glasses. Look at him! Everyone makes it to the palace, but the wizard will only meet with them one at a time. Dorothy and Toto meet with the wizard first, and the wizard has taken the form of a giant head. He says that he will take Dorothy to Kansas if she kills the Wicked Witch of the West, who rules over the Winky Country. Yeah, I bet you guys were wondering why we haven't heard about her yet. While she is a major antagonist in the story, in the book, she isn't really that important to the plot until right here. And notice, the wizard didn't say, bring me her broom, he point blank said, kill the Wicked Witch of the West. Scarecrow is next, but this time the wizard has taken the form of a beautiful woman. He tells Scarecrow the same thing he told Dorothy, kill the Wicked Witch of the West. The Tin Woodman is given the same response, except Oz appears before him as a mighty beast. Lion is also given the same response, and this time Oz appears before him as a ball of fire. Well, it doesn't help that the Guardian of the Gates tells them that no one has ever managed to defeat the Wicked Witch of the West. Those who have tried either end up destroyed or enslaved. Oh, but our heroes decide to try anyway. They make their way westward into Winky Country. The witch sees them coming and sends wolves after them to tear them to shreds, but Tin Woodman kills them all with his axe. The witch then sends crows to peck their eyes out, but Scarecrow kills them all by snapping their necks. Sorry, I may have forgotten about the body count this book had. Now, the witch sends bees to go sting the group to death, but the bees are killed when they try to sting Tin Woodman, as everyone else is hiding in Scarecrow's straw. Well, the witch has just about had it, and decides to send in the Winkies to destroy them. But the Winkies are cowards, and when Lion roars at them, they flee. The witch uses her last resort, the golden cap that summons the flying monkeys. She tells the flying monkeys to destroy everyone except Lion, since she plans to harness him like a horse and make him work. The monkeys scatter Scarecrow's straw, drop Tin Woodman onto some rocks, which dents him pretty badly, cage Lion, and capture Dorothy and Toto. They dare not try to hurt Dorothy, since she carries the mark of the Good Witch of the North. Now, the witch knows this too, so she decides to put Dorothy to work. The witch knows about the power of the silver shoes, but can't seem to get them from Dorothy, since she only takes them off to bathe, and the witch dare not go near water. So the witch comes up with an idea. She puts an iron bar in the middle of the kitchen floor and made it invisible. Dorothy trips on it, and one of the shoes comes off. The witch grabs it and puts it on her foot. Now, Dorothy really likes those shoes. She demands the shoe back, but the witch refuses. Dorothy gets really angry and decides the best course of action is to toss a bucket of water on the witch. Now, Dorothy didn't know the witch was weak to water. She literally just wanted to get the witch wet because she was mad. Well, water makes the witch melt, and all that's left of her is the silver shoe. Dorothy takes the shoe back, frees Lion, and tells the Winkies that they're free now. She also recruits their help to find Scarecrow's remains and where Tin Woodman fell. Thankfully, the Winkies are excellent tinsmiths and fixed up Tin Woodman. They also repaired Scarecrow. The group set out for the Emerald City, but the Winkies hated to see Tin Woodman go, as they wished him to rule over them. Now, on their way out, Dorothy takes the golden cap. She doesn't know it's magic. She just takes it because it's a pretty cap. The group actually gets lost on their way back to the Emerald City, and they call the field mice to see if they can help. The queen of the field mice says that Dorothy should try using the cap, and the magic words are inside the cap. Dorothy uses it, and the flying monkeys must obey her. They take her to the Emerald City, but on the way there, the king of the flying monkeys tells the story of why they are in servitude 3 times to whoever holds the golden cap. There was a sorcerer named Guylet. After playing a trick on her fiancé, she cursed the flying monkeys to obey whoever holds the golden cap 3 times. Now, since Dorothy used the cap once, she can only use it 2 more times. Well, the flying monkeys drop the group off at the Emerald City. They're all frustrated, though, since they haven't heard anything from the wizard. It gets to a point where Scarecrow sends a message to Oz saying that if he did not allow them to see him soon, he would send the flying monkeys to help them. Now, earlier, the Wicked Witch of the West had actually used the golden cap and the flying monkeys to drive Oz out of the West, so he knows what they are and what they can do. Because Oz doesn't want to go through that again, he allows them to see him. This time, he's just a disembodied voice. But what's this? Toto knocks over his screen, revealing an old man. This is the actual wizard, just a regular guy. Oz arrived in this land through a hot air balloon. He's originally from Omaha. Oz agrees to keep the promise he made to the group. He gives Scarecrow a brain by stuffing his head with bran, pins, and needles. He gives Tin Woodman a heart made of silk filled with sawdust. He gives Lion a potion of courage. Because each of them had faith in the wizard, they feel as though they have received what they desired. Now, how is he going to get Dorothy home? Well, he fixes up his old balloon and plans to go home with Dorothy and Toto. At the send-off, he appoints Scarecrow to take his place and rule over Emerald City. Well, Toto chases after a cat in the crowd. Dorothy chases after him and picks him up, but it's too late. After the ropes break, the balloon and Oz are already gone. Nobody knows what to do. Dorothy asks the flying monkeys for help, but they can't carry her beyond the desert. Well, that was a waste. One of the Emerald City soldiers suggests that Dorothy meet with Glinda, the Good Witch of the South, ruler of the Quadlings. But the road is full of dangers since there's wild beasts in the woods and odd people who don't like strangers. Well, after all our protagonists have been through, they decide to go. First, they run into a bunch of trees who refuse to let them pass. Thankfully, we have our Tin Woodman and his axe here to help. After passing through those trees, they come across a city made entirely out of china. And now I mean china the material. The group is very careful to pass through the city. Dorothy actually meets the princess here and wants to take her home. The princess refuses to go with her since if she were to leave the city, she would never move again. Dorothy doesn't want the princess to be sad and lets her go. The group makes it into a forest where the beasts seem to be having a problem. A giant spider problem. Lion, with his newfound courage, decides to take it on and defeats the spider quickly. The beasts now want him as their king. He agrees to be their king, but he has to help Dorothy first. Now, the group makes it to a hill full of odd creatures known as hammerheads. They have flat heads and no arms. They also like to stretch their necks and hit people with their heads. Now, Dorothy uses her last call to the flying monkeys to have them fly the group over that hill. They have finally made it to the country of the Quadlings. They immediately take the group to Glinda. Now, Glinda agrees to help, but she requests the golden cap. She plans to have the flying monkeys take Scarecrow back to the Emerald City, take Tin Woodman back to the Winky Country, and take Lion back to the forest nearby. Then Glinda will give the golden cap to the Flying Monkey King and tell the flying monkeys they are free. But what about Dorothy? Well, Glinda tells Dorothy how the silver shoes are meant to work. All Dorothy has to do is clap the heels of her shoes together 3 times while saying where she wants to go. The shoes will take her there in 3 steps. She says goodbye to her friends, picks up Toto, and does just that. But on her way home, the shoes fall off her feet. Lost forever in the desert. Dorothy has finally made it home. Uncle Henry had built a brand new farmhouse. Aunt Em is beyond happy to see Dorothy had returned back home. And they all lived happily ever after. Well, let's get to the movie. I already told you about the silver shoes becoming ruby slippers. Now, I'm sure you also noticed that the story is written as if the events actually happened, while the movie made the whole adventure seem like a dream. That's understandable considering the fairy tale nature of the book. Plus, the movie was made in the 1930s. They could only do so much back then. The events that happened after the wizard leaves were not in the movie as well. The reason for that is the same reason why the ending of The Return of the King was different. The protagonists already went on their giant adventure and didn't need another one. Although, it would have been interesting to see the little China city and the land of the Quadlings. I understand that it'd be pretty hard to include the Hammerheads. Also, the exclusion of the Good Witch of the North. Okay, well, she's not fully excluded. They just made Glinda the Good Witch of the North. Now, that I can understand since the Good Witch of the North in the book really only appears once, and Glinda appears in the end, and seems like a more fleshed out character. Plus, the Good Witch of the North isn't named. Also, you all probably noticed that the Good Witch of the North didn't intervene in the book like she did in the movie. Well, they probably had her intervene in the movie because, again, 1930s. I don't think they could have perfectly recreated what happened in the book with all those mice. Now, let us talk about the absence of the Wicked Witch of the West. In the book, the witch is a one-eyed, angry old lady who wants more slaves to fulfill her needs. Sure, that could have been portrayed in the movie, but it's possible that they wanted her to seem more of a threat. Which is good, it raises the tension and drama in a film. Plus, it helps to know your antagonist better and want to hate them in order to cheer for the hero. I completely understand why they went this route in the movie, and I'm a fan. Now, is the book better than the movie? It depends on who you ask. Personally, I think the book is better because of the fairy tale writing style and nature of it all. That and the songs can get annoying. But the movie is still a good classic film, and I'd recommend it. Just don't watch it on loop. The songs will eventually drive you insane. Anyways, let's analyze the book for a little bit. It's written like a fairy tale, so of course the messages within are pretty clear. Let me share a couple of lines from Oz that I really liked. This is what he tells Scarecrow after he asks Oz for his brain after they find out who Oz really is. You are learning something every day. A baby has brains, but it doesn't know much. Experience is the only thing that brings knowledge, and the longer you are on Earth, the more experience you are sure to get. Now that's on page 165 of the book. It is true. We all learn something new every day, and the longer we continue to learn and gain more experience, the wiser we become. Now this is what Oz tells Lion in that same scenario, also on page 165. You have plenty of courage, I am sure. All you need is confidence in yourself. There is no living thing that is not afraid when it faces danger. True courage is in facing danger when you are afraid, and that kind of courage you have plenty. Does this phrase sound familiar? We've all heard this phrase before. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's being willing to keep going even if you're scared. Now, I noticed this as I was reading the book, how beautiful Oz is described and how plain Kansas is described. Yet, Dorothy still wants to go home. She knows that Oz is a really beautiful place, but she wants to go home to her family. In fact, later in the book when they meet Glinda, Dorothy tells Glinda that she's more concerned about Aunt Em and Uncle Henry going on without her. See, she loves the land of Oz and her friends, but she knows that she needs to go back to her family and help take care of them. She can't truly be home without her family. I can tell you're already wondering what Oz told the Tin Woodman. Well, I didn't forget about him. Oz told the Tin Woodman, I think you are wrong to want a heart. It makes most people unhappy. If you only knew it, you are in luck not to have a heart. Now, I read this a couple of times and thought to myself, why would he say that? And then it hit me. Hearts can experience bad feelings, like heartbreak and sorrow, but Tin Woodman replies with this. That must be a matter of opinion. For my part, I will bear all the unhappiness without a murmur, if you will give me the heart. He knows that having a heart will cause him unhappiness. But he also knows that having a heart will give him the greatest of joys imaginable. Let's talk about the wizard himself for a minute. Even when Oz is found out, he still wants to help out. He helps them out in his own special way, with methods that would appease each of them. Of course, with Dorothy, he can't use tricks. But with the others, he knows that with a little push in the right direction, they will believe they have what they truly desire. While Oz is just a regular man, he's still trying to provide magic to those who wish it. Like he said, he's a good man, but a bad wizard. I don't know. I think he can do magic in his own special way. There's more to magic than actual spells and charms, you know. I honestly wish I could continue on, but I think that would take too long. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this. It's a great story to read to kids, and it's a great story for kids to read. It's a beautiful fairy tale. It's not too complex, unless you want to think about it really hard, and it has a beautiful ending. It's also really cute with good messages. I'd recommend this for ages 7 and up. While you could read the story to younger children, I think that they would understand it a little better at that age. This book has affected many lives over the years, and the 1939 movie isn't the only adaptation out there. In fact, there are very many. Plus, the book has a lot of sequels written by L. Frank Baum, After he passed away, the story was continued by many others to the point where it's hard to keep track of it all. That's why I'm not reading all of them, because that would take too long. If you enjoyed the movie, I'd strongly recommend reading this book. If you haven't seen the movie but are curious about the story, please read this. It's a fun-filled adventure that's perfect for relaxing. I'm so glad I got to read this, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Happy reading!